Already in 3, 2, 1. Already in everyone, brothers. Welcome back to a brand new video. Now, in this video, we're gonna do some discussion, and there's a big thing going around that's just Fortnite's dead. That's what everyone's saying, and I'm kind of going off of a video I saw last night by a CypherPX, right down here, and we're gonna play some Dan TDM. One of his streams in the background just cause family friendly and whatnot. But anyway, guys, so we had all this. I'm not gonna go too far into the competitive side. If you want to see that, go check out CypherPX's video. He goes way more in depth with how that worked and how the servers were always fixed and all this other stuff. But I'm just going on the content and the content creation side of things. So if you look, we barely get what we used to get. So we would have, we used to have, I remember back whenever this was like out, we had weekly updates. We had and this is going to show off their in-game event, because I want to bring up a couple of things that go along with this kind of event. And you're going to see here something I'm going to point out in a minute. But that's something that we no longer have, is LTMs, or limited time game modes. And that was really what made the game fun, was you were always concerned about, this thing happening. And you were always concerned, and you were always ready for something to come out. I remember with the weekly updates, we would all sit back and we would, say, we heard this was gonna, we heard these items are like leaked, and we know they're gonna come in the game soon. And it's like there's a good chance, and they would tell you. And I think it was every week or two we got a new what's it called? We got a new item, and some items revolted, and we just don't get that anymore. So, if you're asking me, is the content creation side of things dead? Very much yes. Because, I'm gonna bring up some points that CypherX said, so sorry if it just kind of sounds like I'm robbing off the video, because a lot of the points are stuff that he has said. So, look at it this way. We had, there's YouTubers like C-Day and Fearfulness that haven't touched the game because they can't get the moments they used to get, where they just hopped into a game, a random dude, and they had that, little kid they couldn't control, there's no more of the funny stuff they can get out of that if we look at it. And it's just, and then there's big brand YouTubers that just blew up the game that are leaving just because there's nothing to do. And skill-based matchmaking doesn't make it fun, because you used to have that victory royale used to feel like you earned it. Now it just feels like it was given to you. And I remember, in this footage here, there was no such thing as skill-based matchmaking. So you could either get in a lobby with people, with some of the best players in the game, like really good players. You could get in a game with horrible players, and I'm not trying to, sound bad or make anybody feel bad about their skill or anything, but that's just how it went. Or you could get a mix of both, and those were the good games. And look at this here. This was still a promotion, but we had content at the time, and that's what made Fortnite fun, because we had all these items, and you gotta look at this. We used to get, I can't even count the amount of items that were added. We had chug splashes, we had porta-forts, we had porta-fortresses, we had impulse grenades, shockwaves. We just don't get any of that anymore, and there's no patch notes anymore. So you rely on third-party sources to give you your information on everything that you need to know about the new update. Because I remember I would sit down, I would read off all the patch notes, and then you would spend, if there was a new item, you could spend, somebody could find it your first game, or you could sit there for 2 hours trying to find that item. And the thing that I miss the most are end of season live events. Like, where did those go? We went a full 6-month period with no live event. And the time of me posting this, the Travis Scott event is either there's still more concerts. I streamed it yesterday, the time of me recording this. But if you think about it, that's not a live event in a form. It was an in-game event, yes, but it's more of it's a promotion. That's what it is. I'm talking about what we're about to see some here, and it's Fortnite storyline related content. And I mean, we had the Star Wars event, but like that was our promotion. It was cool and all. Don't get me wrong, love Star Wars. And last year, last season, and a regular event is about 5 minutes or so. And yes, I do have to agree that was an insane event, the Travis Scott one. It was, and I know it takes a lot of time to pull those things off. And it was double the time, so it makes sense. Because regular season is 2 or 3 months, so you double that and you get what we had. Okay, so we're going to rewind here a little bit. I'm going to point out something that I was trying to get on the subject of here. If I don't keep missing it. So, back in Season 8, they dug up this. They were digging around the map and they found all these different areas. And they came across this point. And there were these ruins, which are these things right here that are glowing. And those would appear somewhere around the map. And the community would collectively do something together to make it move around the map. I mean, there was one like where we had to dance, we had to do color sorting, we had to hit it so much, we had to sacrifice materials to the volcano. Like, there were just all of these different things that, as a community, we helped do that performed a live event. And, we had that live event, and it was just, the vault opened, we found a weapon, we came out, and there's the volcano was erupting, all this different stuff. And, it's kind of like, where did those things go? Because that was the big hype around the season. You waited the whole season, not just for a battle pass in general, but you waited and you just you waited. Personally, I waited, just waiting particularly for the event to actually, like, happen. And, I remember there was that big lead up to the end live event, and you would just, we sat there for however much time theorizing this could, this would be cool if this happened, this is how the event could play out. And you sat there for almost all your games that you played, and you were just saying, it'd be cool if this happened, what if this happened, so on and so forth. And then there was and then on top of it all, we had content. And I don't understand why Chapter 2 came along and we lost content in general. There's nothing new. And, I'm not saying that skill-based matchmaking should be removed, because, I don't find it that, big of a deal. But, I look at it as, do I, if they want to fix, because, Fortnite, don't get me wrong, it's still a huge game, still has a great fan base, but, that was always the fun, is because there was every so often you would get that horrible item. It was actual garbage. There was, the thermal sniper, hot garbage. There was the storm, I think it was just called the storm tracker or something, actual hot garbage. And, but that was what's fun, is because you spent the weeks leading up to it thinking, hey, how could this gonna work? Could it be good? Could I, improve my gameplay off of it? And then there would always be that one update. You'd get the really good gun, like the drum gun, for instance. And it's super good. The Epic would try to balance it, and then it would just be vaulted. That's what I miss in Fortnite. Because, you could play it for 2 days, and yeah, you could get bored, But then, you always know that next week you're going to come back and there's going to be something new to check out and play around with. Now you have to wait 2 weeks for that. And I remember last season, they extended the season, and I legitimately sat there and didn't play Fortnite for a really long time. It just because there was nothing new to play with. It was the same game, nothing changed. And whenever they introduced the swim mechanic, I'm like, this is really cool. I love it. If you could use it, is how I see it now. Because the map is double the size of this. I'm gonna try to refer to it as Athena, which is the code name for this map. And it's double the size of Athena. And there was, so now on top of having, if you're, just trying to play out your game and not die, you have to run half the game from the storm. And then you have to spend that other portion of the game. And there's the rivers. Those are, actually really cool. I love this swim mechanic. It's one of my favorite things. But, like I've said previously, we can't use it because there's the rivers that have a current, and they're always flowing the wrong direction of the storm. So, 9 times out of 10, there's no point in ever using the water. It's just there to keep me from getting from point A to point B, and it just slows me down. And I don't know how many of you remember, but we used to have mobility. The map wasn't even that big, but we had mobility. We had drift boards, we had ATVs, we had quad crashers, we had mechs and ultimate. Mechs definitely weren't my favorite thing either. I'm not gonna say they sucked because they really didn't, but they weren't horribly. They were bad, I'll admit, and everybody hated Season 10 because of that, but I look back at it and I'm like, I feel like I gave Season 10 more hate than it deserved because, you look at what we have now and Season 10 is bomb compared to what this is. And, we don't have mobility anymore. And I know there's gonna be people that are like, we have the boats, we have the helicopters. I'm forget, but they that's nothing compared to what we used to have. And the only problem is the boats, you can barely use them. We need a land vehicle. Get rid of the boats. I remember when I first saw the boats, I'm like, this is really cool. And I thought it was going to be the same old with Fortnite. That would probably be gone at the end of the season. Most vehicles were. We'd get one introduced at the beginning of the season, and they would be gone within the end of the season. And they just aren't. Even if there wasn't even if there wasn't those updates, the storyline, that was hands down my favorite thing. I loved watching videos. I loved theorizing, and you would sit there and and it's like whenever the event came and it all kind of pieced together, you were like, I know this is extreme. You always had in your head, I could be right, and then the event came, and then it'd be like, you were totally wrong. It was always your friend, and they'd be like, or one of you would have that idea that kind of went into what happened. So that was honestly super, super cool. And we look at this now and you see this, we have the in-game promotion. We had a game mode for that. We don't have that anymore. And the LTMs, we had we had Air Royale, we had Floor's Lava, we had Food Fight, 50v50, 50v50v2, they're gone. The content is gone. And I don't want to play every one of my games as solos or duos because it just gets boring after a while. That's why LTMs were fun. Because we got 3 LTMs a week and it was rotating. And those were in the patch notes. It would rotate throughout the week. And that's honestly what I really do miss is the LTM rotations. Is because you could play a couple rounds of solos and duos and you'd get bored of it. So you could switch over to an LTM and you could be really good at an LTM. and it just mixed up the game so much. And now that I'm watching back some of this old footage, I see these rivers and stuff, and I just think in my head, like, how amazing could it have been if Epic kind of did what was originally, like, the same thing. It all went to Loot Lake, but there was like the 3 streams and you could swim on this map. That would be so cool. And it just didn't ever happen. And today, I could go on forever with how Fortnite could still be better. How all this other stuff. There's over 1,000 people working on Fortnite. Last I heard, Epic, we know you can pull off updates, and for all I know, they could be planning something really big. And in my opinion, there is nothing foreseeable for me. And there is some really good things about the new season, but at the same time, there's a lot of bad ones. And I think there's a lot more bad ones than good ones. The lack of content. There's no patch notes. I don't know what changed. I could come in one day, like, I remember the suppressed or the silenced SMG. It used to be so good, and then it just died one day, and its fire rate was horrible. And I didn't know that until I picked it up and practically died, and almost or did die from it. And you sat there and you're like, didn't that fire rate change? So then you'd have to go look at an older clip of it and see how fast the fire rate was, and then go into replay or play another round and try to figure it out. And that's what overall I think ruined the game. And to name one, I mean, we had like choke splashes, we had reboot vans, we had like all this other stuff. Remember, I remember whenever reboot vans were added, there was such a big hype in the game. Whenever jetpacks were a limited time item, we had our first vehicle that was shopping carts. I remember the huge hype around that stuff. Because it was new, it was fresh. And one of the last things I'm going to mention here is, I don't know how many of you watching this video have been around since Chapter 1. And what I'm going to refer to is, if you've been around, probably I'm going to call the time of Season 4 and it's Season X. Because Season 4 is where we kind of we went into the Fortnite that I want back. And that was the time that we had, the storyline started. And I don't know how many of you remember, we had like Hot Rocks. That was mobility. And like, you saw the volcano smoking, and then there was like, Epic, I felt like used to always listen to the community. I'm not saying they still do, or I'm not saying that they don't anymore. I'm just saying that they don't. Their communication is horrible compared to what it used to be. And you could sit down and play Fortnite for hours on end and still have a good time. And now I feel like I play 2 games, and I'll get loaded in to, because I did really good one day and I ended off, and then I'll get loaded into people that are really good at the game, and then I lose like 3 or 4 games pretty badly, and then I go into a game that has with absolute bots, and it's, you get 15 kills in that game, and they're just cheap. They feel like free kills. And remember whenever like Siphon was in the game? Remember we had Glider redeploy? Like, all this stuff was an addition to the game. And again, I could go on forever about how I wish this would change and all this other stuff, but the moral of this is no constant LTM rotations, no new LTMs. We haven't seen a new LTM in probably like 3 months. Remember community creations? Those were amazing. Gone. We haven't seen a new item in so long. I can't even think the last new item that we got. And I remember you could always name off the last new item that you had previously, because you always remembered, you could, because they were new, they were fresh. And yes, there were always items there. It was a constant rotation of the game, which kept it fresh and fun. Because you could do like really good with like clingers and impulses. Both of those were vaulted for a good period of time. And when because one update would come around, or just something would happen vaulted, but there would be a new one. There would be one or two new items in there, and you'd be like, okay, well, let's try to get this and let's see if it's any comparable. And 9 times out of 10, even if an item was vaulted, it would come back eventually, which we no longer have. So the lack of LTM changes, lack of new content, and now that I think about it, I'm pretty the proximity thing, and so I need to get back on what my final thing I was going to talk about, but it was basically where I don't remember how many of you were back in season 4 whenever we were waiting for playground mode to come out, which is no longer in the game. It was pretty much replaced by battle labs. And that's necessarily what the same thing, but it was. But at the time, I mean, you could play with 4 friends. And I remember when they added, you could have lobbies of, 16 people for, playground and stuff. But besides the point. So, playground, you could have a full party. So, 4 friends. You had a whole hour to do whatever you wanted on the main island. You could build stuff. And, I remember... And there was such a hype, and it kept getting delayed, and there was always just such a big hype around it. And it finally came out, and everyone played playground mode back in season 4. And I remember, watching YouTubers, and they would spend half of their game trying to set up, I remember the death runs were a big thing. So they would, sniper v runner, it's called creative now. So I remember, they would just sit back, and they would spend half their game trying to get that set up. And then they had 20 or 15 minutes to record the video. It was just so much fun to watch. But then at the end of the game, everything was deleted. But you were okay with that because there was nothing, you could spend a lot of time, but you would usually never get everything completely finished. And, everything, and then there was always new skins. And we still do get a lot of new skins, but they aren't as good as they used to be in general. And then maybe, I think it was about, 3 seasons later, beginning of season 7, we got creative mode, which was playground but better in a simple form. You got it, and you could just screw around it, and everything you did was saved. And we used to make so many maps with it. We would make everything. We would make we made game modes. I have so many game modes still saved. We have a capture the flag. We made zombie game modes. We made because of the map changes, we always got new prefabs we can mess around with. I have a bunch of fighting maps, and there's just a bunch of islands that we just devoted for dumb crap that we could mess around with, and that's the gist of what I'm saying. The lack of updates, the lack of new content, the lack of game mode rotations, the lack of just everything. It feels like. The lack of communication, the lack of, and I remember we would always be really mad whenever an item was vaulted, but you were like, that's, you never, there was never an even community, and that's how it's always going to be. There's a portion that hates it, there's a portion that loves it, there's a portion that just doesn't care in general, and usually the people that hate a lot of items are in the competitive scene, and the people that love them are in the non-competitive scene. And overall, is Fortnite dead? The answer to that is yes and no. And you might be asking, how does that work? If I had to answer that question, and I was asked that question, the reason I say yes and no is for the reason of, yes, because we have no new content. There's nothing new in the game. It's bland. It's boring. There's barely anything new. They have a shotgun in the works that we have been, and it's come on. At this point, previously, in the old Fortnite, we would have had 4 or 5 new items in the game. Most of them probably don't stick, and most of them are actually vaulted by the end of the season, of course. But that was, we always had new items. We're this far into the season, and we had 4 or 5 new items by the end of it that were added, probably more. And a lot, there was, it's not like you didn't always necessarily have to have a new item. You could have always had just an item that's like came back in the game. And that was why it was overall fun. It's because you always had to change your meta, you always had to change your gameplay, always had to figure out the brand new thing. And the lack of updates, the lack of communication, lack of content, lack of LTMs, lack of, new weapons which go along with content, lack of, I could go on for a long time on this. Lack of storyline for some people. And the reason it's not dead is because they still make millions every day. I think I saw the other day, I saw a post, and it said they have $15 billion some dollars as a company collectively. And I'm like, that's physically insane. Even if Fortnite finally dies, or I shouldn't say finally, but eventually does die, there's still going to be a pretty big community playing it. And, there's going to be we always are out here. They have 15 some billion dollars. And, they're probably, good chance, not going to go bankrupt anytime soon. Nowhere in the near future. And they made, like, the Gears of War series and stuff. But, like I said, they're not dead necessarily because of the fact that they still have a huge player base. And this is the time that Fortnite could have redeemed themselves. It was quarantine. They had so many people playing everything. But it's all overall just gone. And, we could have, Fortnite, I know you have, if there's an Epic employee watching this, which I highly doubt there is, but if there is, Epic, you can still redeem yourself. We know you have the capacity to do it. You have the team to do it. You guys had an amazing team back in the day. It felt like nobody could stop what Fortnite had. And they just stopped giving us the content that we had previously, and that was what ended it. And I remember, like, here you see as Hawkeye's bow. That was basically just the boom bow on steroids. That's what made it good. Imagine TNTina's bow, but better. It's legitimately TNTina's bow with no reload. It's the old boom bow. Its reload was super fast. There was no recharge, and then you add Sky's grappler to it. Like, it was amazing. Boom bow was my favorite thing back in the day. Still is. Not in the actual game. It's kind of bad in the actual game, but yeah. I mean, at least if we get a storyline back, Epic. Again, if somebody's watching this, the gist of it is, get some of your community in here. Start talking to them. Try to figure out what your community wants. And again, don't listen to everybody, because not everybody knows what's best for Fortnite. But get some of your star creators, get some of your big competitive players, some of your biggest competitive players in here, and just talk to them and see what needs to be added. And bring back weekly updates. Bring back our LTM rotations. For God's sake, I want LTMs back. And, bring back those things. And it's going to take time, and I know it's going to take a lot of work if you do this, but you could build your game back up to where it was. That's just my opinion on it. But other than that, guys, if you guys did happen to enjoy this video, I want you guys to please consider subscribing, turn on those post notifications, and smash that like button. Remember that I want you guys to have a safe, wonderful, and blessed rest of your day. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.